Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Tammy Baldwin. I am a representative in Congress for South Central Wisconsin, including Beloit. And I want to say a couple of things about the midterm elections. And I wanted to start out with a recollection. How many remember where they were on Election Day 2 years ago, watching the votes come in and watching, wasn't that an exciting night? Yeah. All right. And I want you to also remember where you were and what you felt when we had our inauguration on January 20th, 2009. I mean, I had this incredible opportunity and privilege to be there, right up close and watching and looking down the mall and seeing that mass of humanity taken really a pilgrimage to see this extraordinary day and this extraordinary man sworn in as the President of the United States. And I took a little personal delight when the helicopter Marine One took off and whisked George W. Bush away from our capital city. With all of that sort of, those wonderful recollections and memories, I also have to go back to what we faced on January 21st, 2009, which was a mess of epic proportions. So think about what all was going on at that time period. We had a financial services sector that was spiraling out of control, near collapse. We were at war in 2 countries. We had, in that month alone, January of 2009, our U.S. economy shed 800,000 jobs. 1 month alone. We had a massive deficit and trillions in debt, all brought on by the policies of the Bush administration. That's what confronted our new president and our newly seated Congress in January of 2009. Now, far from throwing up our hands and saying these challenges are too big, I think the administration took a page from the Wisconsin playbook, forward. Forward. That's our state motto, forward. And within just weeks of his inauguration, President Obama sent to the Congress the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. So this is a piece of legislation that had multiple aims, but first of all, just to deal with the immediate crisis, unemployment insurance extension, and making sure that people who had just lost their job would have the ability to maintain their health insurance, with help paying for that health insurance. It also had the next step of ways to rebuild, which is putting people back to work. You heard the expression shovel-ready projects, and we had a huge investment in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure in areas that would put people back to work immediately. And it also made powerful and important investments in our long-term prosperity and restoring our faith in the American dream. And one of the key investments was and continues to be in education, because we recognized that education, particularly higher education, and access to that and opportunity to achieve that was a centerpiece of any recovery. But not only that, the foundation of the future longer-term prosperity, because innovation and what comes out of the ideas of well-educated entrepreneurs is what is going to fuel our recovery and our sustained prosperity. We need to lead the world again at making things that make our lives better, and I think in particular of the investments made in education related to basic science and engineering, etc., because we can lead the world with a clean energy economy, and those investments were part of the Recovery and Reinvestment Act also. Yes. We didn't stop there. This president also followed through on his pledge that we would reform our health care system. And after nearly 100 years of aspiration, we finally have set in statute our aspiration that every American have access to high quality and affordable health care. And that is very, very, yes, it's very as you know, that it's not something that we passed and flicked a switch and all of a sudden the next day it's happening. It's something that's being implemented over time. But even today, we have tangible benefits from that legislation, as young people can now stay on their parents' health insurance until age 26. And people, children with pre-existing health conditions can no longer be denied health insurance. Imagine the tragedy and the heartbreak if you're a parent with a child who can't get insurance coverage. And the cap on benefits that people have run up against and then face personal bankruptcies because of an illness or an injury, those are forever a part of our past. And so this legislation that had been decades and decades in the making was also passed. And then for higher education, the restructure of the way we work our student loan system, something that now is saving our nation billions of dollars, and that money is being reinvested in two ways: to pay down our deficit and reinvesting in access to higher education through increasing the Pell Grants and making them available to a greater number of students. These are all important achievements. I have left out the Wall Street reform effort. We have to make sure that we can look citizens in the face and say, we now have rules of the road that will prevent a meltdown like what we saw from ever occurring again. Now, in any ordinary year, the accomplishments that I've just listed would be thought of as, well, this Congress would be thought of as the most productive Congress in generations. This president, at his 2-year mark, would be viewed as one of the most productive presidents in history, if you think about the magnitude of these pieces of legislation. I don't need to tell you, though, that this isn't an ordinary year. And we're still, because we inherited such an incredible mess from the previous administration, the recovery has been slower than any of us would like, but it sort of stresses how deep of a mess we were really in. And so if you happen to be one of those citizens who is struggling to get by, lost your job, or your hours are getting cut back so the income isn't as much, or you're dipping into your savings or maybe even your child's education fund to pay the bills, or you're a month behind or more on your mortgage, or maybe that's not even happening to you individually, but a relative that you love and care about is in that situation, so you're stretching to help out. If you're in any of those situations, the accomplishments that I just listed are probably background noise because you're focusing really on getting by in the next step. And that's the context in which these midterm elections are being fought out. And they're also complicated by a couple of additional factors that we all need to be aware of as we reach out and get people out to the polls. One is the changes that we're seeing in media and local newsrooms. Local newsrooms are really hit hard by this recession. A lot of them are staffed by maybe half the staff they used to employ just a few years ago. It's getting harder and harder for earnest citizens and voters to just get basic information about what's happening at local, state, and national government. What are our officials doing? What about the candidates that are challenging them? What are their positions? It's harder and harder to get that. But then those voices that are out there reporting are almost drowned out by the pseudo-news, the talk shows on the radio, some of the packages that purport to be news but really aren't even produced by journalists on our cable network. Those sounds are pretty loud right now. And add to that, compounded by a recent U.S. Supreme Court case called Citizens United, which has just opened up bundles and bundles of dollars that are also drowning other noises out on the airwaves. And these are serious issues. So again, this is the way in which we find ourselves as we face these midterm elections. So Have I depressed you enough yet? So what are we going to do if we care about the future direction of our nation?